Good morning and welcome. I'm Donna Davis from the University of Oregon, where I am the director of the Oregon Reality Lab. And we're going to spend the next 15 minutes or so talking about immersion and ethical responsibility. So to that end, I want to cover in this next 15 minutes are the following things. So while we talk about the power of immersion, something that all of you who are in AR, VR, XR know just how powerful it can be to take somebody into a space where they feel like they are truly there, where we're using these spaces not only for entertainment and education, but to change people's understanding and behavior and educate and advocacy and all of the things that we use these tools for. I want us to think about that power. And when we do, I want to give you a little bit of background of what makes me want to talk about it, why I'm here today. We'll talk about the ethics of design, the ethics of anonymity, and the ethics of embodiment. When you think about all things immersive, design, anonymity, and embodiment are the three things that really can make or break an experience. They are so important to what it is that we're trying to do in these spaces. So we're going to talk about those in the next 15 minutes. It's going to be a quick and wild ride. So let me start with a little bit of background. As a professor at the University of Oregon, my research area for the past decade, actually 12 years, has been studying avatars and people in social virtual worlds. So in that, I worked on a National Science Foundation grant for 3 years with a community of people with disabilities in Second Life. As we think about, especially XR or VR, Second Life is now what we would think of as legacy media. So as we think of this legacy medium, it still is kind of the originator of that sense of immersion and embodiment. It still happens on a 2D screen, but the new, more immersive and embodied experiences that we experience in VR with headsets are basically the next gen of these technologies. So what we learned about people in this study has been really, really enlightening. And as we think about, again, immersion, embodiment, anonymity, those things are so important as we think about them through the lens of people with disabilities or illness. I've worked with people also for the last decade with Parkinson's disease. And what does it mean to have a body? What does it mean to have a body, a digital body in a virtual space? And what do we learn from that? So having worked for this amount of time with these people, they taught me a lot about what is the power of this technology. What should we be thinking about as we build experiences and design these technologies for multiple purposes through the lens of the people that may be the original innovators in these spaces? These are the people that really have, in many times, in many situations, lived in these spaces. So let's start with the ethics of design. As we think about all of these exciting technologies, when I talk about people with disabilities, I want you to start by thinking about designing for somebody like Cody. This is a 30-year-old man with cerebral palsy, and we traveled to Linden Lab and High Fidelity. He's been part of our disability community for the multiple years that we've been doing this. And Cody is very disabled. But as you think about design for somebody like Cody, he can't use his hands, as you can see by him sitting in the wheelchair now. He can put his hand on the joystick that moves his wheelchair around and about. The little piece on the front of that bar in front of him, actually that plate has his cell phone mounted to it. So he can type with his nose on his cell phone to text in a virtual world. We had to put the headset on him. He can't use a mouse. What we did is we put the tracker on his foot, and he was able to move his foot and watch his avatar move his hand, and something he's not capable of doing in the physical world. So when you think about someone's body and their ability or their disability think about the way the design of these technologies is augmenting, not replacing, but augmenting their experience in really important ways. How can people already in medicine are learning, have figured out that we can put people in these headsets and have them kick a ball for physical therapy in a way that makes it fun. At the same time, you have people like Cody or other people in our community who cannot wear a headset, whether it's a sense of claustrophobia, motion sickness, or even the ability to hold their head up. Sometimes they simply cannot do that because of their disability. So think about the people that are wearing these technologies when you think about design, and think about accessibility and universal design. So when we think about design, think of Cody, or even someone with Parkinson's who might have a tremor, where a tremor might mean a mouse that moves really quickly, or a hand controller that makes an avatar's movement and their embodiment look odd to other people that are sharing those spaces with them. So think about tracking, think about reading, thinking about speaking for people who may not move, see, speak, or hear the same way that you and I might. So as you think about the ethics of design, I always am encouraging people to think about universal design. Moving into anonymity, I'd like to also introduce you to Fran. Fran Serenade passed away a year ago at 92 years old. She got into Second Life at 84 as a woman with Parkinson's. She was in Second Life with her children, who are obviously adult children. And one of her favorite things to do was to log in and put on a ball gown, as you see on the top of the slide. Her son would log in from the other side of the country and log in his avatar, put on a tuxedo, teleport his mother to a ballroom, and take her ballroom dancing. As we think about anonymity, we hear a lot of people, and this especially happens as we see headlines as we're living in a divided culture and an angry culture. And we think about how often headlines talk about the anonymity that is one of the affordances of virtual reality is anonymity, and how often anonymity is used for good, for bad, and for very, very ugly. And I would argue that one of the things that Fran would say, especially as we talk to the creators and designers about the way our avatars look in these spaces, in our embodied spaces immersively, and when we're engaging with others in these spaces, how important is realism? And if you look at Fran on the bottom part versus Fran in her ball gown, yes, they look different. So is that deception? Is anonymity a bad thing, or the ability to design an avatar that may not look at all like you're human? Is that evil? When the technology was evolving to a point where obviously now we can create avatars that look just like us, soon to be holograms that'll look just like us. Fran would say, I don't want to look just like me. When I log in, and you could see this as I sat beside her at her desk, and she logged in, and her Fran avatar came up. The life came into her, and she said, "That's the real me, not the me trapped inside this broken old body." So as you think about anonymity of design and the ethics of anonymity, how do we need to start thinking about what is okay? When is anonymity okay? Especially as we know that media over time has given voice to the voiceless, or it's changed the way we see each other. Fran was not defined by her age or her weight or her gender. She got to be young, happy, thin, fit, mobile Fran in a way that gave her such joy and purpose, in a way that the physical world no longer provided, that her quality of life was so dramatically improved. So as we think about the ethics of when do we need to say, this is who I am, and when is it okay to hide behind an avatar that may actually be a more appropriate reflection of who you are as a human. And I would argue that some people might say that that's true of both somebody as lovely as Fran in a ball gown, or the troll that we might be fighting with on any form of media these days. So, and at what cost are we willing to give up our identity? So, and as I'm working with someone right now on this concept of the identity economy, what are we willing to pay for that anonymity? What are we willing to pay to create an online identity? This could be another hour or more of discussion as we think about the ethics of our identity in social virtual worlds. So next, I also want to talk about the power of embodiment. So again, one of the things that we learned through study of these people is that we had one person in our community, and specifically, who you see her avatar on the top photo. She in Second Life is Shyla the super gecko. You see her body in the chair on the bottom screen. That is, she suffers from a degenerative disorder that really creates pretty significant pain for her body. And when she has this chair with her computer mounted to it, very funny to watch her in an Oculus with hand controllers where she whacked that laptop and it nearly fell off. You can actually see that in a documentary that was done about this community at Our Digital Selves on YouTube. And you can see Shyla as she works her way through the physical world. And she created a gecko avatar very specifically because in her physical body, you can see she lives with pretty significant disability as well. And she chose a body for the virtual world. And she actually is also a super gecko in Sansar, which is embodied VR, in social VR. She created that character of Shyla the super gecko in that space as well. And she said, because in this space, I can be whoever I want to be. I can be male, I can be female, you can be whatever gender, race, color, age, size, shape you choose to be. And as we know, there's a whole culture and history of what we think of as furries or tinies and all of the different forms that avatars can take. People can get pretty judgmental about choosing a body that doesn't look like a human or doesn't look like you. And as we think about embodiment, her body became a gecko complete with a cape because she is Shyla the super gecko. She would be the first to also remind us that in a virtual world, you can fly, you have superpowers. But even in the physical world, our superpowers, sometimes walking is a superpower for some of these people. So you can create an avatar that represents an identity that reflects an embodiment that you choose that may not necessarily reflect. Think about, again, Cody's body in the physical world and how he's able to use the mouse and able to use the mouse on or the hand controller on his foot to move an arm that he cannot move in the physical world. It's pretty extraordinary. So as we think about embodiment, think about the ethics, and I'm going to go back to design and back to identity, and think about how important it is that these technologies become, again, a part of our body. They augment what our physical body is, how it works. And when we think about the ethics of design and embodiment, think about Shyla, think about Cody, think about Fran. These are all individuals that have incredible stories to tell. And as we think about the ethics of virtual reality, augmented reality, and extended reality, think about all of the ways that we can use these technologies to truly improve lives and create opportunities for people that even all of us are, what my very dear friend and colleague Tom Belstorff would say, we are all tabs. We are all temporarily able-bodied. So as we think about our own bodies and the ethics of putting our body in these virtual spaces, think about them in ways that absolutely reflect the dangers that can happen when we decide that maybe we'd rather be like the Avatar movie where he chose that body over his physical body. How do we protect ourselves from ourselves as we think about the ethics of design and embodiment and immersion and how powerful that truly is, those things didn't go away. But what I'm hoping I'm doing in this short amount of time that I have with you is to get you to think about the potential from the perspective of VR as an augmentation of our human state and the ethical responsibility that goes with that. So to recap, we're thinking about the ethics of design and thinking about how those technologies are going to augment the human condition and the human body. Think about anonymity. When is it appropriate and when is it not appropriate? When do you let somebody live inside that body that reflects their inner self and not judge them for that? And at the same time, in what spaces and places do we really have to show who we truly are in order to protect ourselves and others? And as we think about the ethics of embodiment, what is a body? And based on what are our abilities or disabilities, as I wear glasses, this is an augmentation of my physical body. How do we think about the design of an embodiment of virtual reality in a way that extends the human condition in a really ethical, responsible, and powerful way? And with that, I will also be very happy to take your questions. Thank you to the organizers of Augmented World Expo for making this possible, and I do look forward to talking to you. Thank you.
Good morning, Donna. Thank you so much for that amazing presentation. It's great to see you, but we're so sorry that we are running a little behind today. We're not going to have time for questions. I got word, but what I can have you do is go ahead and share your details and where folks can follow up with their questions, because I tell you, there's been a lot of chatter and a lot of engagement, and there are a lot of great questions. And so go ahead and let folks know how they can get those questions answered.
Certainly. Thanks so much, Lisa. And thank you all for being here. A couple of ways you can reach me. You can follow me on Twitter at DZ Davis. You can also email me at dzdavis@uoregon.edu. Super easy. Those are usually the best ways to catch me. If you can also find me, of course, in Second Life. My avatar is Trady Felicimo. Trady, Tredi, because I am Trady, as in Dr. Donna Davis. So my initials are 3D in a 3D world. And I'm very happy, Felicimo. So find me in Second Life, shoot me an email, follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn at Donna Z. Davis. And I'd love to communicate with you all and learn more about what you're doing. I've been trying to follow chat as well. It's really fascinating. I'd love to. I really wish I was not in my living room, that we were in Santa Clara and that I could have this opportunity to network with you all. So thanks so much.
Awesome, Donna. Thank you. And I'll see you soon.
All right. Take care, everyone.